proper release in this country yet.
I really need a Wii.
We've both had Wii's. Now, horror films have always had this kind of history, the most hated genre of films, right? You know, like you can admit that you love rom-coms. You can admit that, you know, oh yeah, no, I like going to, see drama. You can admit that you like sci-fi as long as it's, pretentious crap. Yeah. Horror films, no. And horror films have always been hard done by. I mean, it's one step above porn, basically. You could kind of go...
A small step.
Basically to say, oh, I'm a massive collector of horror films, the only thing that would get more disrespect would be, I've got a massive porn collection.
Who hasn't, though?
Since, I don't know, like the 90s, people have always come up with these terms to promote horror films. Psychological thrillers, remember that? Yeah. And like right up until the early 2000s, people were saying, oh no, it's not a horror film, it's a psychological thriller. It's like, it's a horror film, alright? And have the balls to be proud to say, I've made a horror film. I remember Wolf with Jack Nicholson, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Psychological thriller. It's a werewolf movie!
I think the only difference between a psychological thriller and a horror is that supernatural element to it, you know what I mean? I think otherwise it is, I wouldn't class Scream as a horror film.
It's a horror film.
I wouldn't class it as a horror film.
Because it's got to have the supernatural?
There's nothing supernatural about it.
You see, I don't define horror in that way. Horror is like the objective of the genre for me. So horror, the purpose is to horrify the audience.
It's like Silence of the Lambs. What would you...
I'd say that's a horror. I know, a lot of people say, I think that's where it came from, when they were going for Oscar nominations and everything, they were like, oh no, it's a psychological thriller. Hannibal
Lecter was part alien, then that would slip into the sci-fi horror genre.
Okay.
But I just think for me it has to have some type of supernatural element to it to
be a
horror.
A lot of people will agree with you.
Yeah. Like the Hostel films.
Yeah.
There's nothing supernatural about that.
There's nothing supernatural about that, apart from inbreeding.
Yeah. That's against nature, so is that...
Supernatural?
Not supernatural.
Yeah, okay. Contranatural? Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
So yeah,
genre there.
So this year we've had the latest in a long line of titles for horror, post-horror. You heard this one?
No,
post-horror.
what's that then?
There was a few films came out this year, which, to be fair, I haven't seen. There was A Ghost Story and It Comes at Night. And some of the filmmakers and a lot of journalists have coined this frame post-horror.
It's like after the horrific.
Yeah, it's not about horror. It's it goes beyond horror. And other phrases in the past couple of years they've had that is elevated genre. Have you heard that one? It's elevated genre.
I've seen Lift.
And the one I think last year was the most pretentious one I heard was DeathWave. It's not horror. It's DeathWave. You haven't heard DeathWave?
No.
So I think it mostly last year or maybe the year before. It was a lot of like the We Are Still Here. Those kind of American indies, and again, I think it's a promotional thing. They're trying to
indie horror.
Indie horror,
right? Okay.
But of a certain genre, so like It Follows.
All right.
We are Still Here.
That's a good horror film. It Follows.
Horror.
Yeah.
Just be horror.
Horror. Yeah.
All right. There's nothing wrong with horror.
I think it's a quest to be very different and niche.
I think yeah, it was absolutely and people wrote about it like the idiots they are. Like Guardian newspaper picked up DeathWave. Post-horror, elevated genre, psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Just be horror. It's okay. It's a good genre. It's better than, it's a difficult genre to make and to do well. So if you've done a horror film and it's got released, be proud of that.
Yeah.
That was my rant. It just 27. I saw the article a couple of months ago about post-horror and it just brought back all these memories, like since... In the 90s, those were my teen years, and I loved horror films. I grew up reading Fangoria magazine.
Yeah.
And then, having all these horror films coming out going, oh no, but we're not horror.
With DeathWave.
With DeathWave.
I have a whole surfboard and everything.
DeathWave.
Riding that wave of death.
DeathWave. So yeah. Do they have rednecks in New York?
Sure do.